Hello, hi guys. So I'm gonna give a few more minutes for you guys to be notified and start joining in the live session. Um, so I can actually hear you guys. I can hear myself actually, cause I can hear outside. Just watching the live session outside. Hi Raji. Hi V. Hi guys. And I can hear them laughing because they're hearing whatever I just said. Hi, wifey. Okay, so let me just give a quick introduction. Sweetheart, will you be able to your volume to bring it down because it's a bit very loud outside. Thank you. And today is a very interesting topic. This is someone that I actually met off IG as well. Thanks to Elijah. Elijah did a podcast on Speqtrum Podcast, which was then shared. And tagged me as well because I myself did a talk with Elijah. That's how I came to know about Jamie and Speqtrum Podcast. Let me just give you guys a slight introduction of LesTalk for our first timers who are actually joining us. LesTalk is very much a live talk where I invite guests of different experiences, different specialties, really day-to-day life. Anyone off the street. So if you come, sit with me on IG Live, share their stories with us so that you guys get to hear it as well. So thank you all for joining. Let me just see. I don't see Jamie joining in yet. So let me just look for Jamie for a bit. Join us as well. Well, let me just give you guys a very slight introduction of who Jamie is. Hi Jamie.
Hi.
Hi, I didn't see Rachel. You in the live session, so I kind of put you in yet. So now I'm gonna do the introduction for
okay.
you. So
all right.
You gotta hear the introduction as well. So
cool.
As far as some of you guys know, Jamie is an independent journalist who has written for Channel News, Asia Luxury. That's why if you look at her stories, I'm so jealous. She's driving around Maseratis and Audis and Minis. I'm like,
and Ferraris.
You're taking me out for a ride one day.
Can. It's a deal.
Right, and Straits Time, Tatler Singapore, and amongst all the other top tier publications, And I would like to also give one more introduction for Jamie itself. I had this conversation over text where I actually texted Jamie and asked what I pronounce, how do I address you, and then I'm just gonna read whatever Jamie actually stated. Jamie said, this is a good conversation we can have as a part of our broader conversations because the concept of pronouns usage varies greatly from individual to individuals, which I agree with as well, right? And Jamie said, for me, I'm okay with either she or he, but it's also very nuanced for me. I won't take offense if someone refers to me as she, but it doesn't feel 100% comfortable either if someone calls me he. Though sometimes Jamie likes it. That said, Jamie is most comfortable with they, as the last post about if you guys haven't seen after this, go to Jamie's profile. You'll be able to see Jamie's posts, and I love all your posts. They're so like,
oh, thank you.
So to your it kind of hits me straight to my heart. Jamie, thank you so much for accepting my invitation. Thank you for wanting to have a conversation with me.
No worries. Thanks for having me. I'm happy to talk about all these things. Yeah, and I think we need more platforms like this, right, to talk about these important issues.
Yes, of course. And Jamie, you yourself have created that platform. Tell me a little bit about Speqtrum Podcast as well.
Okay, so Speqtrum Podcast, we launched in June last year. It's quite significant for me personally because it launched after I publicly came out as trans for the first time. And then 2 weeks later, I felt I was ready to launch the podcast. And the platform is basically intended as a platform for LGBTQ stories, voices, and dialogue. So we share a lot of personal journey stories. So for example, our first interview was with June Chua from the Tea Project. We've also had two individuals from Uga Chaka as well. And yeah, it's really just about giving voice to the community.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing. I think the viewers are also very shocked by the fact that I haven't introduced my drink. So I always start my LesTalk session introducing what I'm drinking. And everyone knows it's always wine. Jamie, I know you have your drinks with you. So what I'm gonna do is we're
Yes.
gonna exchange what
Okay.
we're drinking today. So mine is actually a Jacob's Creek. You can never go wrong with JC's, right? Chardonnay. I love Chardonnay. And it's sponsored by a very good friend of mine named V. So thank you, V, for sponsoring.
Thank you, V.
And what's your drink?
So I'm drinking whiskey, the Glenlivet. Can you see? Does it look like me? So last year I had a whiskey from home IG Live series where I was interviewing different individuals as well, and then I got Glenlivet to sponsor me, and yeah, so I still have some left over. Cheers!
Oh, that's fancy. So here, cheers.
Cheers!
Cheers to you as well.
I'm drinking the 18-year single malt today.
Oh, that sounds fancy. How many years is mine? It's an 1847 Chardonnay. So, yeah. Right. So, Jamie, would you like to tell me more about yourself? Tell the viewers. Tell us something that we should know about you.
With regards to gender identity, or
okay, let's start with that.
Yep. Okay, so okay, let's take it from the start. Why not, right? I realized that I was different when I was 5 years old, and I knew that I wanted to be a boy when I was 5 because I saw my brother and my dad like running around the house without their shirts on, and I wanted to be like one of the boys, basically. So that was the first inkling that I knew that okay, I'm different, and it's only when I got older then I realized, okay, I can't do that. It's not acceptable for a girl to do that. Okay, fast forward to primary school. That's when I actually really realized, because I had my first crush on a girl. Primary 2 it was a girl who was primary 6, and I knew that it wasn't normal, yeah. Because I mean, based on, especially at that time, okay, I've got to let you know this was in the 80s. So everything that we saw on like TV, there was no Netflix and all that, right? So everything was heteronormative, right? So you kind of get the sense that, okay, this is not normal. Yeah, so that's when I really, really knew that something was different about me.
And how did that impact you emotionally?
Okay. So emotionally, okay, what happened was I became very withdrawn. I would kind of not be too close to friends because I knew I was different, and growing up in a girls' school. So I didn't want, like, I kept it to myself and as a secret for a long time. So I didn't want people to know because, you didn't want to get called like a freak or a weirdo and that kind of stuff, right? So it was only in Sec 3 when I was 15 that I actually came out by cutting my hair. So that was like the big signal that, okay, I'm different. Yeah. And then in a girls' school, there's the whole concept of butch and all that. So I was one of the butchers. And I actually want to talk about this because I don't know how things are in schools now, but there was a lot of shaming going on.
Yeah.
So if you were butch and you were shamed by the disciplinary headmistress, that kind of thing, they would purposely make you wear hairbands. They would purposely make you look more girly.
Yeah.
So how it impacted me was I would intentionally try to fly under the radar to not get noticed so that I don't get into trouble, So I was very absent from school a lot. And just basically trying to keep a low profile, low key, try not to participate in ECA, CCAs, that sort of thing. Now on hindsight, when I look back, I was like, wow, like I limited myself and I limited a lot of my opportunities growing up because I was so keenly aware that I was different, and I was afraid of being discriminated against. I was afraid of being even more shamed for it, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Totally. I mean, I love the fact that you actually bring the part out about how schools are now. I have spoken to like my cousins about this. In terms of society, they tend to be more accepting. They're more like it's a norm now, right? So that's what the younger generation say. It's a norm. Back then when my brother is 12, 13 this year, sorry. So when I brought this subject out about me being gay and stuff, it's already impacted his mind that, that's fine. That's totally fine. And he's in a boys' school. So, back then boys used to call each other gay and stuff. And now, he explained to me that, that's a sensitive word. You can't just use and throw it because it might affect someone. So to me, when I hear that, I felt very happy because that's a change. It's a switch. That's
do you have a bird or something?
No, that's my dog playing with his TV toy. So my dear wife that's outside watching this, can you please grab the ball away from him? I'm so sorry about that.
No worries.
But yes, to see that switch, I'm happy with. But with the whole thing going around about the trans community and how MOE was actually handling it, it's definitely something that has been raised. And another thing that I shared when this whole thing happened is that I am happy that this happened because this is where you see allies and trans people and you see all the LGBTQ plus people coming together and stepping up. This is the voice that we never had years back.
Yeah,
now
exactly.
We all have a voice.
Exactly.
And I'm proud of that.
Yeah, it's amazing to see such positive change happening, right, in society right now. I mean, who would have thought that we would be hearing about trans rights issues in Parliament, honestly? And if not for what happened during the MOE protest, and that's why I had Elijah Tay on Speqtrum Podcast in our last episode, if not for that, it wouldn't have opened up that conversation.
Definitely. The next thing that I would ask from you, Jamie, I think what you're doing is really inspiring. I think many people are in the closet because of their careers. I have friends who are in the media who are not out as both of us are.
Really?
They're afraid that. But here you are writing for Straits Times and all these other platforms, and you're also out sharing your story. Where do you get that courage from?
Okay, let's see. The way I see it, right, is that things happen to us obviously for a reason. And like, I didn't ask to be born this way, right? There must be a reason why. So where I'm coming from is I want to use my voice now that I finally found it again for change, really, And if I have a platform and if I have the ability to, I feel it's almost like a duty that I need to do this and I should. And in fact, I mean, it took me a long time to get here because I used to be very private as well. I used to be extremely private and reserved. And it's only like in the last 2 years that I've been more vocal about these things and more out there,
Yeah.
So,
were there any backlashes?
Definitely. Everything comes at a price.
Yeah.
Being so open definitely comes at a price. I am sure that there are a lot of opportunities that I miss out on because of the way I look or because of what I stand for that doesn't align with, for example, maybe the publication or the magazine's value system, for example. Or maybe it's not the right image, or maybe it's or maybe whatever I'm talking about might be a bit too controversial. So I'm actually very aware and mindful of that. But at the same time, I refuse to let it stop me anymore. Maybe it could be an age thing because like last year I turned 40 and it was quite confronting. And maybe it's a midlife crisis thing, I don't know, but like I just feel this urgency that I need to do something to use my voice and platform to help the community. And because I can, and actually, you talk about this, I actually designed my life around being independent for that reason, so that I'm not beholden to anybody in that sense. I don't have to worry about what my bosses are gonna say. I don't have to worry about my job security by being so outspoken about these things. And that's why I choose to be self-employed, so that I have that freedom to say what I want. And if brands or if magazines don't want to use me because of that, or they don't want to engage me because of that, then, so be it. It means we're not aligned, right?
Yeah. It's their loss. It's definitely their loss.
Yeah. But
I'll let
having said that also, right, I actually have to work way, 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 way harder to prove
Mm,
myself and to prove that. So, because, when people see you, they see your gender identity first. That's the first thing that they see, right?
yeah.
And like, there was this awesome quote by June Chua from the T Project when I interviewed her for the first episode. She was like, if people see your gender identity first, what they're seeing is limitation,
Yeah.
but if they see you as an individual first, then they see infinite potential or infinite possibilities, and that's exactly it. But unfortunately, the way the world works and society works is that they just see what's in front of them first
Yeah.
before trying to find out more about you. They just make a snap judgment first, and that's just the world we live in, right? So having said all that, yes, I have had to work much, 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 much harder to prove myself, to prove my worth, and really, really be exceptional at what I do,
Yeah.
because I know what I'm up against. I know the judgments and the perceptions that I'm up against.
Do you think it's harder for us
In what sense?
because of our gender identity or our sexual orientation?
It definitely is harder because it makes it there's that it brings a whole added dimension that you have
Mm,
to kind of overcome,
mm,
with that perception, rather than if you hide, like, like I always like write, like, straight people don't realize actually how easy they have it,
yeah.
because they don't have to deal with all this shit. They don't have to deal with all this discrimination. You don't have to deal with these extra hoops that you have to jump over just to prove yourself. And really, it's about the perception that people have
Mm,
and overcoming it. And so how exceptional do you have to be in order to overcome that initial judgment?
correct. And
Yeah.
I'd just like to share this as well. This is something my wife Sher always tells me. Um, we as gay people, we don't come out once. We come out every day to every new people we meet. And it's tiring and it's draining and it's mentally tiring because I wouldn't say worry, but there will always be a worry no matter how comfortable we are in our body about how somebody else is going to be reacting to us coming out to them.
Mm-hmm.
I took this step of I'm currently in the media field, I'm head of productions. So what I did on LinkedIn is I actually shared, so I had to write my bio, and at the end of it, I added it on that I am married to a beautiful woman, and I started off this platform that's LesBeHeard. And why I did that was like what you mentioned. I want to put it out there first that this is me, and this is always going to be me, but here are my skills. It's really now up to you to decide whether you want to set limitation on the way you perceive me.
Mm.
Yeah, and that
Yeah.
was a very big step that I took myself as well. And it seems to be working out great. When people actually approach me, they come out to me and they tell me, "Hey, Rich, that's really inspiring for you to print a bio. I've never read a bio like this, etc., etc." So to me, I was like, okay, I'm trying to make a change, so I have to practice what I preach.
Exactly.
So,
And for me, so like you asked me about being brave, right? And for me, that's my number one value. My core value that I identified a couple of years ago is about being brave. That's number one. And everything I do has to kind of be aligned with that, And but I'm surprised that you mentioned about it's difficult for you in the media, because I have the sense that media would be a little bit more open-minded about these things.
well, it is for myself. It is in the media industry itself. So the people who work within the media industry, that's fine. Tattoos is totally fine. Short hair, colored hair, that's cool, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in my role, I go out and I meet clients and I pitch and I sell and I meet MNCs who are more, do you get what I mean, reserved. Therefore, that's a different mindset over there.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And the intention, okay, that stereotype of half of the people in the media are gay, or half of the people who are writers and creators and content creators, anyone who's in this art field tend to be gay. To a certain extent, we can accept it because we see it as well.
Mm-hmm.
But to have that stereotype that, yeah, it's fine because she's in the media field. It's fine because you are a writer. You get what I mean? It's a thinking
It like
that
gives you a pass, is it? Is that what you're
yeah,
saying? Okay.
yeah. So it gives us a pass.
Mm, mm.
Yeah. I'm not sure about you.
In a way, yes, I agree with you because like being in the creative field, there's so many LGBTQ people, right?
Mm,
So we tend to gravitate to the more creative professions. But I also have this like this belief system, like it's a belief like say someone like you still look femme. So people won't know immediately upon seeing you, right? But so do you actually also feel that sense of discrimination, even though you can like pass and they would never know?
I don't. Okay, so my hair used to be shorter than this, right? I have
Okay.
shaved sides and I have
Uh-huh.
tattoos, and people immediately just assume that I'm gay, I mean, which I am. Um, the thing is, I don't really care, right? I,
Okay.
I have this mindset that people can have whatever perceptions that they have. I can't control their behavior. I can't
Mm,
control their reaction. I can't control their how they perceive things. What I can control is how I'm gonna react to them,
right.
right? So I think it's because of that how our culture has shaped us to see butchers as gay, as lesbians.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think it's really up to individual. For me, I don't really care. I don't need people to look at me and tell me that I'm gay. Or
Mm-hmm.
if when someone looks at me and tell me, "Oh, you look gay," I think I'm totally okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. On
Yeah.
that note, Jamie,
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to ask you this very. We had a lot of questions on the floor actually,
Mm-hmm.
who actually posted, and I kind of sculptured this because this was so nice. Who are you? Who do you think you are in the eyes of others?
Wow. I know you sent me this question, right? But it's like it's so difficult to answer because like okay, do I base it on my experiences in society that I face every day, or do I do and really like if I answer this question, it's basically it will be like me putting myself in their shoes, thinking about how they would think about how I look or
Mm,
judge me, right?
mm,
So, I mean, what I can tell you honestly, like when I move around society, if I go to the neighborhood coffee shop, if I go to a hawker center and all that, if I go to a shop many, many, many times, there's a lot of content that comes on, and then that's the reactions that I get, simply because of the way I look. And that's my everyday experiences, and which is really interesting because it really contrasts with my work,
mm,
being in the media, being in luxury lifestyle, I'm treated like a VIP at events, by clients, by brands and all that. And there's this huge gap between how I'm treated in society and how I'm treated in work. And sometimes it does fuck with my head, to be really, really honest,
yeah.
because it does fuck with my head. It does fuck with my self-esteem sometimes,
Mm,
because in one world I'm treated like a VIP. But in everyday life, I'm treated with so much contempt everywhere I go, just
mm,
because of the way I look and without even having to say anything. It does help when so so the way I counter it, the way around it is I have to work extra hard to be nice. I have to work extra hard to be friendly to people,
mm.
and 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 that's my reality. It just for them to actually be nice to me or to give me like basic respect. And
Right.
respect is another big issue I think that a lot of trans people deal with
Yes,
or or miss or do not get in their lives. Yes.
definitely. Yes. Um, I think another question that I will post out to you. You mentioned about the society portion is something that you go through day to day daily, right? What about the portion where when you're at your professional best, right, where they treat you like a VIP? Does it also fuck with your head that you're thinking is like, are they treating me this way because I'm actually going to be writing for them, or is it because they really respect me?
For that question, right, I've thought about it and honestly, I don't care. Because after a whole lifetime of being treated like shit in society and strangers that I don't know, you know, like to be treated nicely,
Mm,
I'll just take it. I'll take it,
mm,
I won't overanalyze it. I won't like try to doubt it or whatever. I'll just take
definitely.
it for what it is because it's so far few and far between.
Mm.
Yeah.
You go, love. I think that's the way we have to continue living our life. No, we're never going to be happy.
Yeah, you can't overanalyze every single thing. Yeah.
Yes. So now that we have covered about how do you think other people see you? How do you who do you think you are in the eyes of yourself?
It's such a deep question. Very, very philosophical and deep. But it's things that I think about very often, actually, to be very honest. And like I'll do like little exercises with myself. Like just now I mentioned like being brave is one of my top values. So I literally like I write down and I have three top values that everything that I try to do has to be aligned with these three values. So brave is one of them. And then being gracious is another one.
Mm-hmm.
And then elegance is the third one.
Okay.
So yeah. So that's like sort of the cornerstones that I have for my life, and I want my life to be shaped in that way.
Okay, so once you're going through that, I'm thinking about what my three values are.
Great. What do you
Right?
think they are?
I think number one would be respect. To give everyone respect, even though I'm not given. Number two, to stand up. So to stand up for people who don't have a voice. I'm the kind of person, if I walk down and I see a boyfriend hitting a girlfriend, I stop them. I am. People will call me capo, but for me, I know it's the right thing to do because I can't walk down and then think at the back, is she alright? Is she alright? Is she alright? So I think that's my second point. My second value. I think my third value. To be kind. I think my third value will be to be kind.
Yeah. So if you ask me, I try to live in accordance with those values that I feel are very meaningful for myself. Obviously, it doesn't happen all the time, but I try my best.
Yes, Jamie, I think that's a very nice way of actually self-actualizing yourself. So for all of you guys who are watching, can you think about the three values that you think impacts you the most, or that's who you want to be? And then if you are happy with it, type it down and share with us what your three values are as well. So I'll just like to move on, Jamie. I was reading the reason why I call you here is because of one of your posts on Speqtrum that I was reading, which I actually posted on our IG itself, or LesBeHeard's IG. And you did get very deep there. And when I was reading it, I could feel the pain that you were going through, right? I'm the empath person, right? So my question would be, how would you like to be identified?
As in by labels?
Yeah, by labels. By labels, sexually, physically.
Okay. So it took me a while to accept the trans label, which I mentioned I only came out as trans last year. But it was a label, or it was a word that I've been drawn to for a while. And for some reason also I feel very drawn to the trans community because within the whole LGBTQ spectrum, the trans community is the most marginalized. I mean, it's pretty it's we can't argue with the fact that they're the most marginalized. So I feel the most for them. And I also feel like by aligning myself with the trans community is also a way that I can help with my voice and with my platform. It was also a big step to adopt that label of trans, because it's not just saying that I'm lesbian, it's saying that I'm not lesbian. You know, it's actually making that distinction. And for somehow society can actually, I feel society can accept if you're lesbian or if you're gay a little better. But if you're trans, it's almost like you're a different breed of person, or not even a person almost, you know. So that's how I have decided to identify. That is how I identify. But okay, then you talk about sexually also, right? So I pretty much grew up or lived my whole life kind of thinking that I'm lesbian.
Okay.
But not entirely feeling 100% that it fit, right? And then when I started hearing the trans label in the last few years, I started feeling like that was more me, basically. And it's significant because there is a distinction. like in my post that you read, I mentioned that I don't enjoy lesbian sex.
Yep.
And nothing against it, but it's just not something that I enjoy, and simple example, like I enjoy using toys, but not there are lesbians who really don't like to or don't want to for personal reasons, right? So that's also another reason I knew that, yeah, the trans identity fits me better
Mm,
because I prefer straight style sex, if that makes sense.
mm,
Yeah.
mm. Definitely makes sense. What about physically?
What do you mean?
Well, do you wish that you had maybe a gender assignment
Okay,
for you to feel that you have got the parts of what a boy does or male does?
definitely, definitely. And yeah, this is something I've written about as well. The penis envy is very real. I really do wish that I had the parts of a boy. I do wish that, and it is something that I've thought about. I have thought about starting with hormones. But of course there are so many considerations. Um, but ideally, in an ideal world, if I could step into another room and suddenly become a boy, I would do it in a heartbeat. Yeah.
What is stopping you to
That
actually go through that transitional step of taking hormones or surgeries?
that's a very good question. So I'm currently undergoing counseling with the T Project to help me with these kind of decisions and the whole thought process and the emotional readiness as well. And I mean, obviously, okay, cost is one big issue,
Mm,
right? Um, and then so there's this whole concept about gender roles in society. And this is something that I actually think about,
mm,
It's not just the physical appearance. I might get the physical appearance that I like and it makes me happy, but then I also have to think about my gender role will change in society.
mm.
Because right now, no matter what, I'm still a girl, and and I can get away with some girl stuff, but
Yeah.
like once I really truly become a man, gender role will change, and am I prepared for that? And I also have to think about how society is going to treat me and react to me as if they thought and believe that I'm 100% male. So it's so I have to really be ready for my life to completely change.
So my question, you may not be ready to answer this question, but the question that came out in my mind as I'm hearing you say this is, are you ready to sacrifice the past 40 years of your life?
Sacrifice, huh? What do you mean by
Yeah,
sacrifice?
so you're mentioning about the perks of being a woman and
Uh-huh.
how and your doubts about how the society is going to view you as a male, because once you have completely transitioned, I wouldn't call you a trans man anymore, I'll call you a man.
Mm,
Are
mm.
you ready to sacrifice that role and that perks to actually be who you want to be?
Yeah, I guess I'm not ready because like one of your questions was which washroom do I use, right? And this is a very typical question for trans people, right?
Mm-hmm.
I generally tend to use the female washroom
Mm-hmm.
because it's nicer and it's cleaner usually. Um, but sometimes if the female washroom the line is too long, I will use the men's toilet and I'll be fine with it and I wouldn't feel weird about it. So in a way, right, I kind of like still having that choice right now.
Mm.
But if I become 100% male, I would not have that choice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
So different perks lah, definitely.
I think many people will be going through what you're going through. It's an understatement, but there are a lot more in Asia, right? There are a lot more trans women than trans men.
Mm,
So trans men don't really get the education and the resources and information that they need to actually go through this. Um,
really? Are you talking about in general Asian society or
Yeah,
Singapore
okay, maybe
context?
let's talk about Singapore, right? There
Okay.
isn't, and when I talk about resources, it's very different when you go and speak to a counselor or someone who has experience in it, or
Mm-hmm.
like someone who's in surgery that's able to do that for you,
Mm-hmm.
versus speaking to another trans man. you will gain more experiences through speaking to another trans man, because you know what they went
Yes,
through, you know what you can expect.
exactly.
How has that been for you? Do you
Which,
have anyone to speak to about
yeah,
this?
which is why I've gone to the T Project for counseling. So my counselor is actually a trans man.
Okay.
And I've had different counselors before. I've gone to Uga Chaka for counseling in the past as well. But it's this particular counselor, somehow, for some reason, I feel really, really gets me and understands my challenges in a different kind of way. And I feel like my growth and my healing has been exponential in the last 1, 2 years that I've been seeing him, compared to like the last 10, 15, 20 years of my life. So it definitely really is important to speak to someone who understands your unique challenges, definitely.
Yes, I have many people who reached out to me, who told me that they're not comfortable going to counseling, because once they step into the world of counseling, number one, they're exposing themselves, right? They're exposing themselves, and they have to actually accept the fact that this is what they really want to do. This is something that they are considering, and this is where did you go through that phase where you were unsure whether you should actually go for counseling?
Okay, so the other thing that I champion in part of my whole life message and everything is mental health.
Yes.
And I'm a huge advocate of people seeking the help that they need. So when it comes to counseling as well, I'm super pro because I feel like everyone's gone through shit, just to whatever degree, right? And everyone needs some sort of healing. And it's not that, okay, we're so broken that we need healing, but if we can heal ourselves, certain things, our life can just take off, and can really, really take off in incredible ways. And actually which is what happened to me and for me, so I super champion mental health and going for counseling. So that was never really an issue for me. In fact, when I was a teenager, I asked my parents to send me to a psychologist, but they thought I was like crazy, like, like talking crazy. but
Yeah.
but I identified very, very early on how valuable it is. And I
Mm.
think especially for the LGBTQ community, because we shouldn't be ashamed of our challenges,
Mm.
because, the discrimination is real, the
Yeah,
marginalization is real. And
definitely.
it's, yeah, and it's things that people from the straight community can't quite understand because they've never been subjected to it and they've
Mm-hmm.
never had to deal or experience it, right?
Yeah.
So, in a way, yes, we sometimes do come with that extra baggage, because of some of the shit that we have to deal with, or
Yeah.
sometimes families kicking kids out of the house for being gay and that kind of stuff, So I feel like the community does need a lot of healing. Of course, there are some who have very supportive family backgrounds, right? But those are really quite rare, right? So I do feel that they can benefit from it, and my message would be really don't shy away from it, because think of all the ways that it can really help you, you know, help you to just heal and release everything that might be holding you back from a lot of things in life.
Yes, definitely. Well, Jamie, just to let you know, is I started off. There's still this stereotype out there where people still feel uncomfortable, right? To go and seek help, to seek therapy, to seek
There's still a
professional
stigma
help.
for sure,
That's still
yes.
that's still that's still there's definitely still a stigma. So when I created LesBeHeard as well, I told myself that I am going to reply to everybody who messages me. I'm going to follow everyone who follows me, and I do that.
Mm-hmm.
And half of the people who are following LesBeHeard have reached out to me, and we message via IG, and I always tell them that we're always going to be here. We're always going to hear your story, and there's so many people who actually email us, thank you, as well as telling us their life story and asking us for advice. So my same message that I'll put out there is, if you guys are going through something and you don't feel comfortable to go for professional help yet, you can always reach out to me. I'm sure you can always reach out to Jamie as well. And we'll be more than happy to speak to y'all, or even give you guys a few other ideas of how to go and get professional help. I think it's very, very important to speak to at least somebody when you're
Mm-hmm.
going through
Yeah.
something that you can't understand.
Yeah. And there are some organizations that do have like anonymous kind of WhatsApp services for
Correct.
counseling, right? Like I'm sure, I think Uga Chaka has as well,
Yeah,
where you
they
can
do.
just message into them and all.
Definitely, and I'm so grateful for those platforms. I always tell, please speak to them. If I'm not wrong, Aware also has a lot of they also
Mm,
have anonymous counseling sessions where you can just speak to someone. There's a hotline as well.
mm-hmm.
Since we were actually talking about your sexual experiences, there were a lot of questions about sex
Okay.
from people who are either dating a trans man or are interested in a trans man or are trying to transition and they do not know how they are going to go about their sex life.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you have any stories to share with us? They didn't get into specifics, and I don't know of another trans man for me to actually be bringing up the right stories. I want it to be as candid as possible.
Okay.
Tell us something that you think we don't know.
About being trans male.
Yeah,
Okay.
about being
So,
trans male and the whole sexual experience.
okay, that question is a bit tricky because I haven't transitioned, I feel, or I'm not even on the way to transitioning. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if I'm in the right best position to answer that question. Because I still don't know actually like how to navigate the dynamics of that whole area if I
Mm-hmm.
actually do transition.
No,
Yeah.
but personally, how you actually approach that.
Hmm.
How
Okay,
are your current sexual in bed experiences like?
okay,
Preference.
to be very, very honest, there are no current experiences.
Oh,
So so to reference, yeah. So so I'm not sure how to answer that.
okay. I think another question that came in under sexual experiences as well. You can stop at any time if you're not comfortable
Okay.
answering,
Mm-hmm.
right? So this person actually wrote saying that I've known a trans man who actually uses a toy, so a strap on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The question is, if you're using a strap on, how do you feel pleasure yourself?
Okay. So for me, I can answer that one in terms of like that is my preference. I generally prefer to use a strap-on.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the how do I That's very interesting because the how do I pleasure myself, right? It's very secondary actually to me personally. It's always more about the other person
Mm-hmm.
and pleasuring them.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. Mm.
Right. Okay. So it's I would say it's a more of a one-sided. Um.
Okay, so if I look right at my past history lah,
Yeah.
majority has been I want to say one-sided, but also not really. How do I phrase this?
So it depends on individual who's in your bed.
I think it also depends. Yeah, so it depends on the dynamic that you have with the person as well. Yeah, I think I need more whiskey. Cheers.
Yes. It's the topic that we're talking about. Yeah. Okay. Maybe let me boil down to this question. If let's say you are going to be in bed with a person and the other person is versatile, would
Uh-huh.
you let her get physical with you to pleasure you?
When you say get physical, like which
Um,
act do you refer to? Because it depends.
um, okay, let's break it down to two. Number
Okay.
one is hands. Number two is oral. Would
Okay.
you
So,
allow her to do that to
mm,
you?
as you can see, I'm quite uncomfortable with that that question. Um,
Feel free
um,
to stop at any time.
okay. What I can tell you is that I'm not comfortable with oral,
Mm,
being
okay.
receiving oral. I also think it has to do with me being reminded
Yeah.
of what I'm not
Hmm.
and what I wish I had, if you get what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Would you say that when you are experiencing or when you had sex with someone, after that tends to be a little more harder compared to any other normal days when you're not having sex?
What do you mean by harder?
Mean to say that that you actually think about what you don't have, right? Does it get harder
Oh,
after sex compared to any
right, right,
other normal
right.
day?
Does it remind me of the parts that I don't have, you mean?
Mhm.
Okay. Not really, actually. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's not like, okay, after then I feel even more inadequate because I don't have the parts. No,
Mhm.
that's not something that bothers me.
Perfect. And the next thing would be, what about when you, let's talk about relationships, right? There are a lot of lesbian women out there who, I think for you, you will probably have to date. I'm sorry for assuming, but let me correct me if I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You would probably date a receiver compared to someone who's versatile.
Probably, yes.
And how would you know that?
So interestingly, right, I tend to go for straight women. And this is something also that, or maybe not go for, but I feel more attracted to. I don't know, for some reason, honestly.
Mm,
So that's something that was significant also because growing up I judged myself a lot for this.
mm,
And when I thought that I'm lesbian, and then I used to judge myself very harshly and like, okay, why are you being so stupid? The person's
yeah.
straight, they're not going to be into you, that sort of thing. But then
Mm.
for some reason, I'm just not really into lesbians. I mean, no offense, but that's just like,
No, of
I don't
course
know,
not.
it's just, yeah. So it's just like what you're attracted to, and
Yes.
I realized, so it's only the last few years that when I started like looking at it from the trans lens and started understanding it from that trans perspective, I started realizing that hey, that there was no reason for me to actually judge myself so harshly growing
Mm,
up, falling for a straight woman all the time, that kind of thing. Because internally, my mindset is very much of a straight male.
yeah.
So, yeah, sorry, what was your question again?
It's okay. I'm just gonna follow up with that question.
Okay, sure.
How did the straight woman take it?
So that's why this is a bit of a challenge, right? Because when you're in your 20s, it's fine. They're up for it because they also just want to have fun. They want to experiment sometimes and that sort of thing, right? But then as you progress and you get older, the the women's priorities change, right? And they start thinking about getting married, settling down, that sort of thing. And then that becomes like a whole other like I don't want to say issue, but it becomes a whole thing to like think about and talk about as well. So, and then as you get older still in your 40s, again, the dynamics change. So I think that's why I've been single for so long.
Let me just put it out there. You don't look 40. You don't look 40 at all.
No, thank you very much. Because I'm using a filter, that's why.
I'm also using it. Okay, you gotta still share with me. Share me some tips so I can also when I'm 40, I'll look as young as you are.
That's a good and bad thing, I tell you honestly. Because people keep telling me like I look like in my late 20s and all that, and I feel like people don't take me as seriously, and that's why also the thing about wanting to be a man has become
Mhm,
more pronounced recently because
mhm,
I feel like I don't get that respect at all.
mhm.
Because if I were male and if I were 40, I would get way, way, way more respect everywhere, period, hands down.
I will not disagree with you on that.
Yeah.
I will definitely not disagree with you on that. I think I would like to also move back to your professional life. I think a lot of us have more issues with that ourselves. Is about our professional life. Many people don't come out because of their professional life. You
Mm-hmm.
know, usually families already know.
Yeah.
Usually friends already know. If you're not bringing back, for me, if I'm not bringing back a guy and it's always a woman, I mean, they all just kind of already know. But in professional life, it's slightly different. Have you, because you're more physically out there in the sense that people will know,
Visible. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Do you think because you look the way you are, you may have probably lost gigs or have, as a writer, you probably pitch your stories? Does it work that
Mm,
way? Do you pitch your stories or do they actually approach you to write stories for them?
okay, so in my industry, it happens two ways. One is
Okay.
I get commissioned by my editors, and then they assign me the story. And then the other way is I pitch.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, I would say for me, because I've been around a long time and I've been doing this for a very long time, plus I also make a lot of effort and investment in networking as well. So I feel like it doesn't hinder me as much. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I still get jobs, I still get gigs because I have the track record,
Mm-hmm.
because I've paid my dues, I've put in the work, you know. Versus maybe someone who's young and starting out, then they might feel a different set of challenges.
Yeah.
So I feel like for me might be slightly different because I have been around a while. I've been doing this for a very long time. But having said that, I do feel like, I mean, I don't know for sure, right? But I do feel like sometimes, perhaps because I'm so outspoken on my IG, for example, about some
Mm-hmm.
of these issues, it might make certain editors not comfortable.
Yeah.
And perhaps that may be why when I pitch, they don't even reply, you know, something like that. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So
So,
you have experienced that
mm,
in to a certain extent, but you don't know whether it is
we
really
don't
as
know
bad,
for sure, but
right?
yeah. But it is something that I wonder about sometimes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Um, you mentioned a lot about networking, that you actually network a lot, and I think networking is a great thing,
Mm,
especially when you're trying to grow your career.
yep.
Um, would you be offended, or have you ever been asked this question that, hey, I just want to ask, are you a female, are you a male?
Mm, okay. This is I don't know. Are you male or female? Okay, that tends to come from children usually, but
Okay.
not really in a professional context.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I have had professional contacts ask if I was lesbian
Mm,
before.
mm,
Say I'm just recalling one incident maybe in my late 20s. Um, the way I handled it then was I kind of like brushed it off and laughed it off and didn't really acknowledge it at all. And I
mm-hmm.
preferred at that time to keep things like questionable, you know, rather than give it to you straight and be honest with it. So obviously that has changed a lot. So in my 20s, like I wasn't as out. I was a little bit more like less obvious. Yeah,
Mm, mm.
yeah.
Okay.
Mm.
And what is your key to your success? Something that you can share with others.
Um, wow. Okay, so my key to my success, I would say, is just work your fucking ass off.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
and I am such a workaholic, I tell you. People don't know and they don't see. They just see what they see on IG or on social media or whatever, right? But like I work morning till night, 7 days a week sometimes, you know, and whether it's on my passion projects or it's on work, you know. So um and I feel especially like with the profile that we have or with the look that we have, like say for me, I do have to work doubly hard. I really, really do have to work doubly hard. And okay, so how I look at it is that we know what the rules of engagement are. We know that there's going to be a discrimination in some quarters, whether we like it or not. So
Mm,
knowing this, then the question to ask ourselves is, knowing this, then how do we navigate around it? So
mm,
I'm very much of that school of thought rather than just feel like, oh, you know, the world is against me, or, you know, and feeling entitled about this kind of stuff, you
yeah.
know. So I don't subscribe to that kind of thinking, which I think there is a little bit of that sometimes
Mm,
in the community, you know, and like demanding for things and all. So for me, I operate very differently, and for me, it's more of like, okay, I know this is the situation. I know that discrimination exists. So who do I have to be in order to transcend that, you know, in order to still be able to achieve my goals and my dreams despite this discrimination existing?
mm, definitely. Jamie, we are almost out of time.
Yeah.
I think I would love to just ask you one more question.
Okay.
You mentioned about that you've been single for a very long time,
Yeah.
right? And how has that affected you? Do you crave for family? Do you
Uh-huh.
is it that you're focusing on your career? What are your thoughts on that?
That's a very good question that is making me squirm again.
Okay, wait, before you answer that, yes,
Yeah, last little bit left.
yes, yes.
Cheers. Okay. Um, it has been a while. So what I've been doing is focusing on my career. Um, but very interestingly, like very recently, I've started feeling like maybe it's time. Maybe it's time to put myself out there again. Maybe it's time to get back in the game again. I also took a time out to heal, basically, because I have had a lot of toxic experiences in my past, and I know that I needed to heal on a very deep level. So part of it was like purposefully taking a break from relationships so that I could heal. So that's been the journey, like the journey to healing while working on myself professionally as well, my professional career. And then now it suddenly feels like, okay, maybe it's time. Yeah,
Mm.
maybe it's time to like start opening myself up again.
Yes, you should. If you think it's ready, it's ready.
Yeah.
There's also there is this like thing, right, in the lesbian community that we do not date straight women. For the facts that you have already for the facts that you have already mentioned, you know, they want to have a family, they want to have babies of their
Yeah.
own with their partner. How do you think that's going to affect you moving on and now getting out there, putting yourself in a place where you're ready to be in a relationship?
Yeah, that's a very good and scary question because seriously, right, if I look at my options right now, it'll be like, okay, maybe somebody in their 20s who's not urgent about settling down yet.
Mm.
But then the question would be the age gap is going to be so big. And the issue with that is mindset, really, you know, on a different frequency, different mindset. And then if I look for someone who is around my age, that would be a better reason. That would be a better option. But then, yeah, then settling down and marriage would be what their priority would be. But then again, right, having said that, I have to actually have faith and tell myself that I'm sure there are women out there who may not necessarily want those things or want to settle down, want to have a kid. And I don't know, man, it's really difficult to navigate because like I want those things as well, you know. So if I find the right person, then I feel like, yeah, okay, maybe it might be possible. But again, it's a lot more complex because of all these other dimensions, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. I wish you all the best. That search I follow your IG, so I'm gonna be updated. Next
Yeah,
time.
we'll see.
Sorry, go ahead. Oh, did your AirPods die?
Yes, my AirPods are dead. Can you still hear me?
Yes, I can loud
Okay,
and clearly.
cool. Yes.
You're about to say?
Oh no, I was just saying thanks for having me. I really enjoyed this conversation. We have like 2 minutes before we get cut off, right?
Yes, actually no. Now IG allows you to stream for more than an hour.
Really? Okay.
So most of my LesTalk sessions they're like overrunning, but we gotta keep it there before both our phone like overheats and dies.
Yeah.
Jamie, just a last question for you. What is something you'd like the world to know?
Okay. So many things I want the world to know, but like
Tell me, list it out. Bullet points, please.
my main message is always about empathy and understanding. And that's what I'm always like trying to ask from the straight community, to just see us as human, really, you know, because I feel like that judgment lens is so limiting, you know, and the moment you take away that lens of judgment, you really just see possibilities, you know. And the other thing, okay, the other bullet point is authenticity. So for me, it's very important that to be true to yourself and to be authentic. And personally, I feel like once I made that journey, once I made that shift to decide to be authentic, a lot more things opened up for me. A lot more opportunities, a lot more career. Okay, on one hand, yes, there's those discrimination, but at the same time, a lot more opportunities also opened up. Like, for example, this particular interview with you, you know. And I think that visibility is so important, but at the same time, I also understand that not everyone can afford to be that visible, you know, and that's fair, you know, because of their industry, their career, that sort of thing.
Totally. I totally agree with you. You are an inspiration to many. Many are gonna be inspired by you. So I would say yes to Speqtrum, yes to your account, yes to you sharing your story, because your story is going to be beneficial to so many individuals, myself included. Every time I see your post and you're posting and I'm reading it and I'm like, so inspiring.
Oh, thank you so much, Rachel. Thank you.
No worries. And Jamie, thank you so much for joining. We will definitely, you will still take me on a ride on the Maserati, right?
I will. Maybe it might be a Jaguar, might be a Porsche. We'll see.
We'll see. I'm cool if anything.
It's a deal.
And
Thank you so much.
thank you so much, Jamie. See you.
Take care. Bye,
Take care.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in, guys.
Yes, thank you, everyone. And guys, for the rest of you all who are still here, thank you so much for being here on our Let's Talk series. We have got someone very special, Teresa, if you guys know who. Y'all will know who. Okay, I'm supposed to keep it a surprise, but I'm so like excited to share it with you guys. So figure out which Teresa. You guys know which Teresa. I'll be posting out more options, and if you guys have any questions for me or Jamie, just reach out to us.
Yep.
All right.
Feel free to DM me as well.
Yeah.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks.